Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Louise Huber begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Leading our bulletin tonight, a former Tasmania Police welfare officer has taken aim at the organisation over its handling of 2 police officers who died by suicide. Sergeant Fiona Smith also claims she was forced out of the role after raising concerns about her workload.
Speaking out against Tasmania Police, Sergeant Fiona Smith voicing her experiences and concerns as the force's former welfare officer, claiming she wasn't given job-specific training. Telling an inquest into officer suicides, she was a police negotiator for 20 years and assumed her life and work skills gave her the relevant skills. The role fraught with workload issues and bureaucratic red tape, claiming her plea to address the issues with then-Commissioner Darren Hine were ignored. Also telling the court she was prevented from attending Officer Paul Hunt's stand-down meeting, despite her successful track record convincing him to get support. Mr. Hunt committed suicide shortly after. She claims a later formal direction to not contact his family was an attempt to silence her. Senior Sergeant Paul Reynolds' suicide also discussed. His death followed a professional standards investigation accusing him of sexually abusing 3 children. Sergeant Smith was also assigned to his case, where was given another formal direction not to contact Senior Sergeant Reynolds' family, citing a perceived conflict of interest. She's calling on the DPFEM to allocate more resources to training, education and workload management to ensure welfare officers can better support police. The inquest resumes tomorrow. Mark Zita, 7 Tasmania News.
And if this story has caused you distress, you can contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. In some breaking news now, emergency services are attending a pedestrian crash at Ravenswood. Drivers are requested to avoid Henry Street between Ravenswood and Vermont Roads while they deal with the incident. The extent of the injuries are not known at this time. The Premier has been accused of misleading Parliament over the local Community Facilities Fund. Jeremy Rockcliffe has held firm, saying there's no need to correct the record, but questions over the controversial program are not going away.
After admitting he misled Parliament about how key election grants were funded, Nick Street stood up to correct the record.
Mr Speaker, I would never knowingly mislead Parliament. However, I do acknowledge that I provided incorrect answers.
Admitting 111 promises were funded from the Treasurer's Reserve, not that year's budget. And then Labor asked why the Premier wasn't doing the same.
I quote, the election promise being funded, included in the budget and the budget being agreed to by the Parliament.
Calling a censure motion in the latest chapter of the local Community Facilities Fund saga.
Accountability, openness, fairness or value for money, Mr Speaker. Fail, 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 fail by this government.
The Premier claims he's been taken out of context, only talking about one project.
This is a stunt. We'll have absolutely nothing of it, Mr Speaker. If I ever thought that I misled this place, I would correct the record immediately, Mr Speaker.
The Treasurer coming to his aid.
So in trying to paint a virtue of Mr Street, they're trying to make a villain of the Premier, and that is a false claim.
He's done that himself.
Between conflicts of interest and shady spending arrangements, those across the chamber aren't letting up on questions.
If the Premier thinks this issue is going to go away, he is sorely, sorely mistaken. Every day as we examine this local Communities Facilities Fund, Mr Speaker, it gets smellier and smellier.
The censure motion voted down by the government. So too a motion to refer the Premier to the Privileges Committee. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
A single southern detention centre, 2 bail houses and 2 supported residential facilities will replace Ashley when it closes in 2024. The government released its proposed therapeutic youth justice model today, departing from the original plan of 2 smaller detention centres.
To ensure the fewest young people end up in secure custody, and those who do are supported to never return either to detention or to the adult prison system.
Advocates heralding the shift to keeping kids out of custody.
There are currently very limited ways that a young person on a sentence in the community can be managed safely. So I'm very pleased to see that the government has shifted its direction.
The government also released a plan to make Ashley safer while it remains open and a 10-year youth justice blueprint. And sites have been chosen for 2 new help centres aimed at victim survivors of family and sexual violence. The facilities will bring together support services, child safety services and specialist police investigators.
Co-location of services at the centres mean that victim survivors only have to attend one location to receive the help that they need, and they will have choices for the pathways that they would like to take.
The centres will be opening next year, with a third in the northwest being evaluated. The City of Hobart is tackling an 18-tonne boulder on Kunyani, Mount Wellington, that became dislodged during heavy rainfall. Crews closing Pinnacle Road at Bracken Lane until Wednesday and from the Springs come Thursday and Friday while they work to split the section of the rock encroaching at the road. Overhanging vegetation will also be removed. A volunteer firefighter has rushed to save his own home when a blaze broke out at Labrina last night. Crews frantically battled the fire from the local station next door once the family had managed to escape.
A family home just metres from the local fire station, torn apart by flames.
He heard something upstairs. He went upstairs to have a look to see what was going on, recognised there was a fire, so he closed the door, came down, rang emergency services.
It began at about 6:30 in an upstairs bedroom while the owner, a volunteer firefighter, and one of his young daughters were home. They managed to get out as the fire took hold.
We arrived here first, naturally, because we're only about 50 metres away from the fire station, so it was a fairly quick turnout on that one.
Labrina volunteers joined by crews from Lilydale and Rochalee in an effort to save the house. Investigators today ruling the fire accidental, but can't say precisely what sparked it.
Ignition source in and around mattress in the bedroom upstairs is the most probable cause of this fire at this stage.
Fire crews say it's lucky the blaze was sparked downwind of the house, or the damage could have been much worse. While the house was fitted with smoke detectors downstairs, authorities are urging Tasmanians to ensure the devices are also fitted in bedrooms.
If you did have a smoke alarm in that room, you would have been drawn to it a lot earlier than when the owner noticed it.
The damage bill is estimated at $300,000. Annie Green, 7 Tasmanian News.
Tasmania's Nurses Union has called on the Prime Minister to intervene in plans by Tasmania's largest aged care provider to change its staffing model. The ANMF is accusing Southern Cross Care of whittling down its skill mix by axing enrolled nurses at its
between 50 to 70 enrolled nurses across facilities statewide that potentially will be made redundant.
Southern Cross Care staff in Launceston joined unions in protest of the changes.
The consequences of losing these vital roles is that it will jeopardise the safety and the health of residents.
The company says its proposed model of care aligns with federal government mandates. The Attorney-General has faced more scrutiny over her intervention in Tascat's selection process. Elise Archer struck 4 names off a list of recommended appointees chosen by an independent panel, while adding 6 other candidates to the list.
I did not consider that the panel had adequately considered whether 4 of the recommended applicants held other positions that could affect the perception of their impartiality.
But the perception is, if you are critical of this government, if you say anything negative about this minister or this government, you won't be considered for government roles.
Legal advocate Greg Barnes is among those recommended but not approved. Independent MP Christy Johnston has called for the use of drug amnesty bins. She says they could help people make safer choices at the summer's biggest music festivals.
That unfortunately, when some people see the presence of drug detector dogs at things like music festivals and events, that rather than do the right thing and dispose safely of their drugs, they ingest them, and these are very risky behaviours.
Police Minister Felix Ellis says their aim is minimising drug use through justice and preventative measures. The legend of Longford's Formula One history is in writing forever, thanks to a new book by one of the town's veteran wordsmiths. Tales of trains stopping drivers in their tracks and bikes reaching breakneck speed run throughout the title, which was launched today at what racing fans call the Corner Pub.
Screaming cars would make your schooner shake 6 decades ago at Longford's corner pub. Today, it's the stories which remain, like the legend of Lex Davison.
Lex Davison was the most colourful driver of the lot, and he crashed it one day into this wall. The car flew up to the second level over there, then it took off across there.
Onlookers thought he was dead.
He wasn't. He got out of the car, he walked across here, walked in there, bought himself a brandy.
Best tasting brandy of his life.
It was, and he complained afterwards because they made him pay for it.
It's among stories galore in Neil Kearney's Longford, the legend of a little town with a big motor. From the common men...
These guys in the white overalls, they were marshals.
...to the champion motormen, the daredevils the public came to see.
Back in 1955, which was my first meeting, the fastest motorcycle was 141 miles per hour, so we're talking over 220.
Those terrifying speeds are what drew racing icon Barry Oliver into motorsport.
I still now wonder how they actually did it.
And if there wasn't enough danger on the course already, how about a train coming through mid-race?
Alan Moffat, going out for his first exploratory lap around Longford, came round this corner here where we're standing in the Longford Hotel and found an official standing in the middle of the road waving a red flag, stopping him from going any further, and the reason was the Tasman Limited train was coming through.
That volume of memories now preserved.
And most of Tasmania came. 40,000 people came to Longford long weekend.
To enjoy every twist and turn. Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
A Hobart laundromat employing vulnerable Tasmanians has taken staff through a lesson on e-scooter use. It comes as a Hobart councillor pushes for stronger scooter restrictions in the Salamanca precinct.
Sorting through barriers to employment, this local laundromat is all about creating an even playing field.
We employ 240 staff across the state. 35% are from the multicultural community and 35% work with a disability.
Workers today swapping their white smocks for helmets in a lesson on e-scooter use.
A lot of our staff don't have cars, they catch public transport, so they either get off at Lena Valley Road or Newtown Road and they have to walk, upwards of a K.
Around 10% of Blue Line employees already implementing the scooters in their daily routine.
It's easy to set up and quickly get to where you need to get to.
The e-scooters give people actually autonomy as well. They don't have to climb onto a minibus taxi with 8 other people.
But it hasn't all been smooth scooting. Concerns raised around safety and drink riding. Hobart councillor Louise Elliott using last night's council meeting to motion for stronger restrictions.
A young person in their 20s who had been at Salamanca, had a few drinks and hopped on an e-scooter for the first time and then needed to have their ankle pinned back together.
Curfew suggestions knocked back because some already exist.
Even though there may be scooters around in the Salamanca precinct, they won't show on our app. You cannot start them.
The motion deferred to a workshop. Brianna Boylan, 7 Tasmania News.
Creatives are limbering up ahead of next week's theatrical thrill ride when Mudlarks' one-day show returns for its 19th edition. Teams of artists defy the clock to write, rehearse, produce and perform plays in just 24 hours.
It's not like people have had months to prepare, so you never know what will happen. It's edge of your seat kind of stuff.
The beauty of theatre is that it's a collaborative art form, so you access several different imaginations, not just yours.
Tickets are on sale at Theatre North.
Hobart Hurricanes all-rounder Heather Graham is in line to make her international debut after being called up to the Australian squad for next month's T20 tour of India. Her immediate focus, though, is on tomorrow night's WBBL Eliminator for the Hurricanes, the side's first final in 6 years. After being the Canes' star recruit this season,
that's beautifully placed from Heather Graham.
It's now Heather Graham beautifully placed for the finals after jumping ship from the Perth Scorchers this season.
A pretty big move to obviously move away from home.
But one paying off handsomely, with the Canes edging out Perth for the last final spot and giving Graham the platform she needed to catch the eye of national selectors.
Just the development and growth in myself as well. and being able to, know my game a bit more.
Hurricanes teammate Nicola Carey is also in the T20 squad bound for India, but the pair's first focus is tomorrow night's eliminator against the Brisbane Heat at Adelaide's Karen Rolton Oval.
We've gone 1-1 in the season against them, so had a win against them out here, so hopefully that's a bit of luck on our side.
It'll end the longest finals drought in the tournament's history.
New group, and hopefully being in the finals is we can take it one step further and get to the actual final.
And England's Zach Crawley has been poached by the Hurricanes men's side. He'll replace Pakistan's Shadab Khan when he's needed for national duties. And Launceston pair Lauren Perry and Josh Duffy are the latest marking their names down for the Tasmanian Christmas Carnivals. The cyclists are now based in Adelaide but are keen to race in Hobart, Launceston, Devonport and Burnie. Starting to feel a lot like Christmas, Luke, reporting on the carnivals again.
Good evening. Well, a whole hour of news so far and no update on Kim Miller's condition, maybe in a minute. Hobart 18 degrees today, Launceston 21, Burnie 17 and Devonport 19. St Helens on 23, our warmest after a pretty cool night and a windy day today. Friendly Beaches 21, King Island 18, Flinders Island and Smithton 17, Low Head and Bushy Park 16 today and Grove and Strawn 15. A few showers over the west and south as the cloud pushed through in a vigorous southwesterly airstream. Cradle Valley 11 millimetres to 3 o'clock today, the best 4. More of that cold air over southeastern states, a large area of cloud over northern and central parts and a thunderstorm or two over the WA coast. Tomorrow that wind direction continues over us as the high remains only slow moving over South Australia, a couple of troughs over the north and west. As indicated, west to southwesterlies on the way again up to 25 to 35 knots, swells on the rise to 6 metres in the west and 7 metres in southern waters. We have a severe weather warning for damaging winds that's enforced particularly from the southeast up through the Derwent Valley and over the central plateau. Plenty of warnings as far as a gale warning and also strong wind warnings are concerned, and also a warning to sheep graziers for many districts. You can check that out on the Bureau's website. Here's tomorrow's forecast. Partly cloudy for Hobart 18, 17 for Geeveston, cloudy in Bothwell 15 the maximum. Launceston 21 and partly cloudy. Mostly sunny for Devonport 19, 19 also the top for Cressy. Burnie tomorrow a high of 16 degrees and partly cloudy but showery for Strawn and also for Curry on King Island. And for the east tomorrow, mostly sunny for St Helens, 19 the high, 19 also for Swansea, Orford a top of 18 degrees. Sun up at 5:35am, about an hour after I'm woken up by the first noisy train. UV a very high 8 later in the day. On Thursday, showers for the west and far south, fine but windy elsewhere. Showers mostly clearing on Friday, winds becoming more light and variable, scattered showers developing on Saturday morning. Partly cloudy in Perth and Adelaide, a possible shower for Melbourne, a sunny 27 degrees in Sydney and 30 the top in Brisbane. Still very windy, Hobart 12 degrees, 14 now in Launceston and Devonport currently 12 degrees. We do have an update, Louise. Kim Miller is still without voice and is unable to speak, which has thrown the whole household into disarray, particularly for poor husband Peter, who normally receives a lot of instructions. Let's hope it all fixes itself by tomorrow.
She can't even have a sick day without copying it from you. Thanks for that, Mev. That's all your news for this evening. Thank you for joining us. I'll have updates later. Good night.